Hey YouTube, in this video we will be doing our first program. It's going to be the good old-fashioned hello world that every person needs to just know how to do. And with that we're going to be covering essentially how to set up your program, how to get it to compile and run, and yeah, this is going to be your first official one. Here we go. So let's put a comment on the top here. My first program. Okay, so first we need to set up our main. In C++, you must have a main because that's where the program starts. It always looks for this and then begins executing. So you do that by typing int main and then open and close parentheses. That open and close parentheses means that this is a function. In fact, if you wanted to write other functions, you would basically do the same thing. I could create another function called int YouTube, open and close. And this right here, I added the semicolon because this is considered a prototype. But otherwise, you would open and close it like this, which is going to be the next step that we do for our main. I just wanted to do this to show you that functions are not like there's functions that you can work with that's already established and stuff, or you can create your own function altogether, hence that YouTube function. So let's continue with this int main, and then you create the little squiggly brackets, open and close. That means that everything inside of that belongs to this function. So the program will say, oh, well, the main function's in here, so let's enter here. Then we start telling it what to do. Since we want to just say hello world onto console, there's a couple things that we need to do on top of this. So the first thing that we need to do is include what's called IOStream. It's a specific library. This library, it's for input and output. So you do pound include less than side IOStream greater than sign. This pound include here is called a preprocessor command. Essentially, the first thing that gets executed in every program are these preprocessor commands, because they happen before the process begins. This is stuff like including libraries that you're going to need for later. By the way, a library is just a thing that holds a bunch of code that you plan to use, a bunch of resources, really. So that's important. Then IOStream is the specific library that we're importing. We're also going to use the namespace std, which stands for standard. So using namespace std. And this is really all we need to write for the top part. Then our int main to enter there. Now, the reason why we included this is because we're going to be using the standard output for the console called cout. And well, it cout. So then you do these two double less than signs, which means that it's going to be pushing, if you can notice like the arrows, it's pushing to the console what we want. So we're going to write a string, hence the quotation marks, hello world, with an exclamation point, and a kawaii face, because why not? And then you close it with that part right here. At the end of your program, if we wanted to include more stuff, we would go ahead and just do so and do so and do so. But at the end of your program, you return 0. Return 0, what it's for is for error checking. If the program runs if the program is okay and there's no errors, it will return 0. Otherwise, it will return other things like 1, and I believe it goes until 255. Those have specific error messages. You can even like set the program to return certain things through like if statements, or even like a full function that is just for error checking. So really, there's a lot of flexibility in programming, and that's why programming is such a nice and beautiful thing to learn. So yeah, our first program. Next thing you do is, if you're using Visual Studios, you can hit this little debugger thing, and it'll just compile and run our code. Now the reason why it just kind of opened and closed immediately is because I didn't run with debug on. I just set it to run. So if you want to do that, go up to the debug over here and say start debugging, and okay. Well, you could do that. Another thing that you can do if you're running a Windows system is do system open and close pause, and like that. Then you can just hit this and run that. Now notice that over here it says like hello world, and then just the press any key to continue right away. The reason why it does that is because in programming, the computer executes everything for you right away, and it'll execute it exactly the way you say it. It does not make any assumptions. So even though we assume that we just want this in one line right here, the computer does not know that, and so if we write other strings, it'll just keep piling it on like this. So the way to do that is we can do another double left arrow, and then do end L, which stands for end line. That means that it's going to make one line down. Notice how it comes before the semicolon. So then you hit this button again, and you see this. Hello world, press any key to continue. So this is our first program, and yeah, from there we can start covering like if statements, and then our loops, and then start getting into classes and so on and so forth. So I hope this has helped, especially beginners. Make sure you know what we did in this video, because going forth we're not going to be rehearsing the basics too much anymore. I'll just keep plowing through, and let's see how far we get. See you in the next video.